Project Apex. The flickering lights of the National Archives beat down on me like a malevolent sun. Endless shelves loomed, stacked with forgotten history, each file a potential Pandora's box. My career with the Bureau had been built on meticulousness and a healthy skepticism, but I was on a wild goose chase, or so I thought. I took time when I was more freed up with studying a ridiculous conspiracy theory that the government had a hand in the creation of serial killers and mass murderers. This theory, I thought as fringe lunacy, suggested that certain individuals, deemed undesirable for vague socio-political reasons, were subjected to experimental psychological conditioning programs in the mid-20th century. The aim, supposedly, was to induce specific behavioral patterns, effectively weaponizing human instability. The documents he was searching for were codenamed Project Apex. For weeks, I had been buried under mountains of declassified reports, most filled with bureaucratic jargon and Cold War paranoia. I'd almost given up when I found it, a misfiled, yellow dossier tucked away in a section dedicated to military psychological operations. The cover was plain, almost unassuming, but emblazoned with the unmistakable stamp, Project Apex, eyes only. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened the file. The first few pages detailed the project's goals, to understand and manipulate human behavior at its most primal level. The language was clinical, detached, almost sterile, detailing the selection criteria for the test subjects, orphans, criminals, the mentally ill, individuals the system wouldn't miss. As I read further, the sterile language gave way to something far more sinister. The documents described the conditioning process in excruciating detail: sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, exposure to extreme violence, and the systematic dismantling of the subject's moral compass. They were subjected to simulated traumatic events, engineered nightmares, and psychological manipulation designed to break their sense of self. One section detailed the use of rhythmic, repetitive sounds and subliminal imagery designed to trigger specific responses. Another described the administration of experimental drugs that amplified aggression and suppressed empathy. The scientists, referred to only by code names like Dr. Crow and the Architect, documented their observations with chilling objectivity, as if they were studying bacteria under a microscope. The documents then listed the subjects, each identified by a code number and a brief psychological profile. My heart rate rose as I recognized a few names. Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, Ed Kemper, Richard Berkowitz, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, the Columbine killers, any person you could think who made the news for these crimes. Their backgrounds had always been a puzzle, a chaotic jumble of abuse and neglect. Now, the truth as horrifying as it was staring me in the face. I scrolled through the files, each page cementing the sickening truth. The project hadn't just created killers, it had manufactured archetypes of evil. The meticulous planning, the ritualistic nature of the crimes, the complete lack of remorse, it was all documented, predicted, engineered. The program had deliberately crafted these monsters, their minds sculpted into instruments of terror. As I delved deeper, I stumbled upon a section marked Phase 2, Dormancy. This chilled me to the bone. It outlined a contingency plan should the project ever be compromised. The subjects, it seemed, were fitted with a form of psychological kill switch, a trigger that could be activated remotely, either to silence them permanently or, far more terrifyingly, to unleash their dormant programming. I frantically tried to find information about the trigger mechanism, but the documents were vague. I found only cryptic references to specific phrases, symbols, and even environmental stressors that could potentially activate the subject's dormant programming. I couldn't take it anymore. As I grabbed the documents, put them in my bag, a USB drive fell out and hit the ground. I grabbed it and left for work early that day, rushing home and closing all my blinds, locking my doors and keeping my gun close to me as I typed this out. I will be putting the USB in my computer here after this post and expose all that is on there. Update: I'm writing this from a hotel on my laptop. I checked the USB drive and now I'm going into hiding. When I plugged the USB in my desktop, a document popped up on my desktop labeled The Future. I read to my utter horror that these tests have plans to put people who have been through this into offices of power and influence. The device must have been bugged because next thing I knew my desktop started crashing and my wallpaper changed to a single message on the screen: "You shouldn't have looked." I packed a bag as soon as I could and ran, and I will keep running trying to help expose this truth. As I'm writing this, I hear the sound of subs pull into the parking lot. I'm gonna load up and try to make an escape. If I don't make it out, get this message out to everyone, please.